Lauren, nice to see you again. Where do we begin? We got the SAVE Act, we got the CR, we got this Andy Biggs Kamala Act, which I saw you signed on to as well.
I did.
Let's start with that one first, because that one's interesting to me, living in California, where I have a dictator in Sacramento named Gavin Newsom, who's already given them discounted college. My kid doesn't get that. Free health care. And the only thing he turned down was the free $150,000 for free homes, because he's trying to look tough on the border now because we know he's going to run in 2028. So I like that Andy Biggs and you and other Republicans are trying to force states and local municipalities to clean up their voter rolls and also not hand out free money for housing and other stuff to illegal aliens when there's Americans suffering. There's my brothers and sisters, veterans on the streets, homeless, that are going to freeze this winter, and we're giving money to illegals.
That's exactly right, Dan. We have veterans who are not treated as good as illegal aliens, people who have been released from prisons in their own country and mental institutions who are coming into our country through our wide open border that border czar Kamala Harris has still done nothing about. And they are coming into our communities, and they're bankrupting many of our local governments. Denver Health was on the verge of bankruptcy after spending $42 million for illegal aliens' health care. The state legislature had to redirect Colorado tax dollars to Denver Health to save them, to bail them out. Another $74 million has been spent in Denver for illegals' housing and food and other expenses. This is egregious. We need to be putting American citizens first. And so I'm grateful for Congressman Andy Biggs and his legislation, the Kamala Act that I've signed on to hold these municipalities accountable, to hold the federal government accountable. And of course, the SAVE Act would clean up those voter rolls and keep illegals from voting in our federal elections. In Colorado, they are absolutely registering to vote when they go and get their driver's licenses, which the state legislature approved some years ago. And so right there, they're asked, do you want to register to vote? And they are able to. And we even had a ballot initiative that I helped with in Colorado that tried to protect our Colorado elections and say only American citizens can vote in our state elections. And when that got to the ballot, when it got on the ballot, it failed. Maybe because we had illegals voting in that election in 2020. But this is a serious problem, and the House has already passed the SAVE Act. I am putting pressure on the Senate to take up the SAVE Act and pass it before we fund this weaponized, corrupt federal government any longer.
Yeah, and the CR, here's what I'm hearing from both sides. I don't mean the Democrats. I mean both sides of the Republican Party, because I separate y'all, right? There's America First folks like you, and then there's rhinos and the Uniparty. So you do have a lot of Republicans who say the SAVE Act is great. I agree, it needs to be in. But because Johnson's attaching it to this CR, which spends more money, and it doesn't reduce any of our spending, some are like, well, no, I'm not going to sign on for this crap, because we had the SAVE Act passed before months ago in a totally separate bill. You're attaching it to a CR that's going to have us spending more money. We're not cutting any money for the taxpayers. So what's going to happen? Are we going to actually approve it? Can we get it separated? And what do you think the Senate will do so it won't even matter what the House does? Is this more symbolism?
Dan, you just made the only point. What is the Senate going to do? Because that is what matters. And what the Senate's going to do is strip out the SAVE Act from any continuing resolution that we would send over to the Senate. If there was a promise by the Speaker, by leadership, by other Republicans who are on the other side, as you say, to take this fight all the way through, then I would be all for it. If we were promising the American people that we will pass the SAVE Act, that this will become law before we fund the federal government, or we won't fund the federal government and we will have a shutdown fight over this issue, I would be all for it.
Yeah.
But we already know that it's going to be stripped out. that this is false hope for many of our voters back home.
Ridiculous.
And we're going to end up with a clean CR. And the CR may even end in December rather than next year, which will force a Christmas omnibus, probably bigger than any omnibus we've ever seen.
This is what happens every time. This is why we, the American people, are so pissed off about what happens in D.C. because everybody just kicks the can down the road, keeps spending our money, and nothing gets done. And now illegals are going to run our elections because they're going to pick future presidents and members of the House and Senate because they're in key areas to vote and nobody's cleaning up the rolls. What a freaking mess Washington, D.C. is. Lauren, thank you so much. My final word is shut the damn thing down over the SAVE Act. Please tell people.
I'm ready to shut this
Shut it
down.
down.
I'm tired of funding a federal government that is weaponized against the American people, against their political opponents,
Yes.
a wide open southern border, inflation. It is time to stop funding the agencies that are creating so much chaos in every American citizen's lives.
Well, you're one of the few. There's only a handful there. We need more of you. Congresswoman Lauren
Agreed.
Boebert, representing Colorado's 3rd. Thank you. As always, appreciate you.
Thanks, Dan.